Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. It's been 5 months since Sheikh Hasina was ousted from power in Bangladesh, and the new ruling dispensation led by the chief advisor, Mohammad Yunus, has been steering a very interesting path in Dhaka. Now, Dhaka very recently asked India to halt the construction of what it calls unauthorized fencing along its border with India. Bangladesh has concluded an agreement with Pakistan for the Pakistan army to train its personnel. This is the first such agreement with Pakistan, and the training is set to begin in Bangladesh next month. Bangladesh has also placed orders for artillery and tank ammunition from Pakistan. 40,000 rounds of artillery ammunition and 2,000 rounds of tank ammunition are to be delivered shortly. Now, the chief advisor, Mohammad Yunus, has also urged a Turkish delegation to bring in defense facilities into Bangladesh to start manufacturing arms and ammunition there. Is a Pakistan-Turkey-Bangladesh nexus emerging in India's backyard? Should India be worried? Joining me to discuss the issue are Ambassador Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh, Suhas Chakma, Director, Rights and Risks Analysis Group, and Lieutenant General Arun Sahni. Welcome to the News9 Plus show. Ambassador Sikri, I want to start by asking you this. India has summoned the Bangladesh Deputy High Commission over what Dhaka said was the unauthorized and illegal barbed wire fence that we were building on our side of the border. Explain to us this dispute over this boundary fencing or along the India-Bangladesh boundary. Isn't there already a fence in existence? Why is Bangladesh objecting to us building a barbed wire fence on our side of the border?
Well, you're quite right. Bangladesh has been needling India on a large number of issues over the last 5 months that the Mohammad Yunus-led chief advisor government has been in power. And this is one of them. And Indian government has been extraordinarily patient and has said that we want to have good relations with Bangladesh, and we have our foreign secretary has visited there. But nonetheless, the needling does not stop. Despite the tremendous patience and goodwill that India has shown. Coming to the barbed wire fencing, India and Bangladesh have a coordinated border management agreement. And the fencing is something, as you rightly said, is being done on the Indian side of the border. Out of the 4,000 kilometer long border between India and Bangladesh, about 3,000 kilometers has already been fenced. So it's not that this is anything new. In the remaining 1,000 odd kilometers, there are areas which are difficult to fence. For example, when you have a riverine border, then the border point will be the mid line of the river, and so obviously it's very difficult to build a fence there. But even so, there are areas other than these that India is continuing to its border fencing program in areas, even though the terrain may be difficult, there may be deep forest, there may be hills, and so on. And in each case, the management is laid out as to how it will be done, as you said correctly, on the Indian side of the border, leaving a very clear area. In fact, India is giving up its own cultivable land to build the border. But the reason to build the border fence, and the reason that India has been doing this is to stop the illegal activities that have become so common and so difficult for the people living in the border areas. And among the illegal activities, if I may point out, one of them is cattle smuggling. One of them illegal trafficking of women and children, and all kinds of drug smuggling. There is a whole issue of fentanyl, and all kinds of issues are there. So rather than involve in a discussion on each point, we prefer to fence the border wherever possible so that to reduce the amount of interaction and prevent people from coming over. Now, the question is that as long as the border is fenced and more is being fenced, illegal activities get stopped. And I think on the Bangladesh side of the border, there's a lot of pressure on the BGB from all these cattle smugglers, from all these individuals. Come on, don't allow this fencing to take place. But India has been very patient, and India is saying, we even have an agreement on coordinated border patrolling.
Yes.
Where there will be patrolling on both sides of the border. If there's a difficult border, if it's one which is prone to illegal activities, one which cannot be fenced, then we have agreed on border patrolling. So actually, there is no need for these issues to come up even to the level of the central government and for the Bangladesh Foreign office to call in our High Commissioner. This is completely unnecessary. In the first instance, the two local commanders should meet.
Yes.
They should discuss. They should agree on what happened and they should agree on what they will do about it.
Yes.
So I think that this normal activity, which is actually inbuilt into our agreements with Bangladesh, is not being observed. And instead of that, we have the matter being escalated to the central level. Normally speaking, every 6 months, the DG BSF from India and the DG Border Guard Bangladesh from there, they
Yes.
meet regularly, turn by turn in India and in Dhaka. But these meetings have also not been allowed to be held because Bangladesh is not allowing it to happen. So while
Right.
they're developing their relations, as you said, with Turkey, with Pakistan,
Yes.
in all kinds of areas like defense, they are trying to needle India on a large number of issues.
They're trying to needle India on a large number of issues, Ambassador Sikri, as you pointed out. But this breakdown in communication at the local level seems to be worrying General Sani. As Ambassador Sikri mentioned, there is a very established procedure for all of these incidents to be handled at the local level between the BGB and the BSF. Why is Bangladesh escalating this to the level of the High Commissioner, calling the High Commissioner, reading out, these objections? Is it to, shine the spotlight away from other issues, that it wants to, quietly carry out while we are distracted with the border?
Sandeep, firstly, good afternoon. Thank you very much. A happy Lodi to all of you, to you and to all the listeners. Very interesting. I think what Ambassador Sikri said sort of hits the nail on the head. Undoubtedly, they're trying to fiddle around and needle India to react. And I think the bottom line remains Sheikh Hasina is out here in India. They
Yes.
felt current dispensation, which of course is supported primarily now by the Jamaat. I mean, as far as the internal or the interim government is concerned, it's primarily puppets in the hands of people who are operating from behind the scenes.
Right.
There's an anti-India agenda that seems to have come out. And I think the Jamaat seems to be ruling the roost.
Right.
As far as India is concerned, I think she's absolutely right. There are laid down processes, procedures. And during my last visit, which I did in November itself, India's water tribunal had gone down for renegotiating the Ganges water treaty.
Yes.
So what I wanted to bring out is that official activities are continuing, but these
Yes.
activities which are being needled seem to be with India to instigate India to react, maybe in a to force us to react, and maybe the bottom line remains to try and hit back at Sheikh Hasina and the Awami League primarily.
Absolutely.
So that's where the worry is, that these are all needling issues, but undoubtedly the security paradigm in that area is now a matter of concern for all of us.
It's
If
a
you-
great matter of concern indeed, General Sani. Suhas Chakma, our panelists say that these are attempts to basically rile India, to needle India, and to focus issues where there possibly none exist, or where there are very finely established mechanisms to handle such issues. Why is Bangladesh repeatedly needling India, you think, over the last couple of days?
Well, it's over 4 months since the fall of the Hasina government, and this interim government has decided in the meanwhile that they shall not remain interim and they shall rule the country as long as they are allowed to do it. When you decide to rule the country, obviously people expect you to deliver on governance issues.
Yes.
And you are not able to deliver on governance issues. So how do you survive in the country? You survive in the country by making an enemy out of India, because if you cannot distract
Yes.
your attention or people's attention towards India because Hasina is there, etc.,
Yes.
then people will ask questions about your governance. What are you doing on the law and order situation? What are
Right.
you doing on the economic situation, employment, etc.? So these are destructive, tactics of the government. It's
Yes.
not that Hasina is here, that's why she is politically active. She will be politically active irrespective of wherever she is. And just the way Tariq J is active from UK, she would be active anywhere she
Yes.
goes. So you do not have to make an issue out of it. So if you look at the issue, the government of Bangladesh, they are doing diplomacy through the media.
Yes.
So they call or they summon the ambassador or the high commissioner. They will issue a press statement. They want to communicate something before even the official letter, the demarche research, the South Bloc, they will issue a press statement. So this press statement, if you see the consistency of the patterns, These
Yes.
are for consumption of their own audience.
Right.
You have to make, now I'm not defending Hasina, but you continue to have to bash Hasina for justification of your own state.
Yes,
The day I think
absolutely.
it finishes, they will go out of power. So that's why they are doing it.
Right, needling to distract from issues of governance, as you mentioned, Suhas Chakma. But Ambassador Sikri, there are other issues here at play where, in the last few months, Bangladesh is very gradually moving away towards Pakistan and Turkey. There have been Turkish delegations that have visited Bangladesh. The chief advisor has met the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and you have this very unthinkable prospect of the Pakistan military once again coming on to Bangladeshi soil after leaving after more than 50 years ago. Where do you think the chief advisor is taking Bangladesh towards? Is it the Islamic Brotherhood of Turkey and Pakistan that it's heading towards? Is it some kind of a quasi-alliance that they're looking at to, again, needle us on a larger, strategic plane?
I think that one of the basic issues we have to accept is that this combination, you mentioned Jamaat-e-Islami, they are really calling the shots. They are the real rulers of Bangladesh.
Yes.
This combination of Jamaat-e-Islami in Pakistan, backed by the Biden administration, this is the combination that fought in the 1971 Liberation War.
Yes.
They were on that side, and we were on this side with India and the people of Bangladesh and the Mukti Juddhas and the people we had trained. So it was at that time in 1971 a fight to continue Pakistan rule in East Pakistan and a fight to have their own military dominated system where they would be able to needle India from both sides. And I've seen this myself, and that's why I use that terminology, because when I was High Commissioner in Bangladesh between 2003 and 2006, Begum Khalda Zia was the Prime Minister and
Yes.
Jamaat-e-Islami was an alliance partner, and they were practicing exactly the same methodologies, not willing to talk at all, but making this issue. And so this is being repeated now because the same combination has come back to power.
Yes.
Pakistan back and so on. But I must also say that one reason more that these people are doing it is that they are trying to have this vicious anti-Indian propaganda within
Yes.
Bangladesh.
Right.
So that lobby has already been there. Every possible way, their media, their Waz Mehfils, the way they describe every issue, the blame is always India, and India is being vilified. Anything that Sheikh Hasina did is because of India. So when
Yes.
they are calling her fascist, they're trying to call India fascist as well. So, and to justify all of this, to say that, look, we've said that India is bad and here's the evidence of it. So they bring up these issues. Sometimes it will be the border management, sometimes
Yes.
it will be some other issue. They're just creating this issue to show and to prove to their own people that this is what India is doing. But I can tell you, and this is an attempt to distract the attention of the people from their own internal domestic situation, which is dire, which is very bad, which is there's
Right.
no law and order. The army has been given magistracy powers, but they're not able to exercise it. The economy, the inflation is unbearable for the people. Power supply, everything is going for a six, and they are just trying to tell the people all the time that don't worry, we don't need India, we are getting it from Turkey, we are getting it
Yes.
from Pakistan and everything else. Now, it is a very dangerous game that they are playing, and India, as I said, has been exercising the greatest of patience and has been at all stages reiterating our interest in good neighborly relations, reiterating the importance of Bangladesh as a neighbor, and saying we want stability, prosperity, and democracy in Bangladesh. But I don't think this interim regime is interested in any of these things, because for the Jamaat-e-Islami, the more unrest there is, the more
Yes.
economic destitution there is, it suits their purpose. Then they control the people more. So, and they will, of course, use it as an excuse for further delaying elections. So I think it's a very messy situation, and we have to steadily insist on early elections.
Right.
When our secretary was there, he did say that, it's come in the media here, that he said that substantive dealings with Bangladesh will start only after the elected government is in place.
Yes.
All the things this government is doing, talking about reforms and making decisions, are not for an interim regime to do.
Right.
The interim regime is only to order elections. They cannot talk about reform.
Yes,
They have
that's a very important point, Ambassador Sikri. How can an interim administration whose sole purpose is to only govern the country so that elections can be held, how can it hold power for such extended periods of time and make such critical decisions on national security and foreign policy and all of that. It's like he's running a government without any legitimacy.
Absolutely. This is the point that India is emphasizing more and more. And I must say, within Bangladesh, all the other people, the BNP is now in a running feud with the Jamaat and with this students groups, the Students Against Discrimination, who now want to form a political party, Nagriko Kyo Jodh. So everybody's at loggerheads within Bangladesh.
Right.
And it is a very, very unsettling situation. The BNP is crossing swords with Jamaat, the BNP is crossing swords with the Students Against Discrimination, and even within the Students Against Discrimination, there have been clashes among the people for loaves of office, and they've had their people land up in hospital because of these clashes and differences. And in the districts, the Awami leaders are being killed. We've seen the atrocious activities against the minorities, against the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Christians. This is something that is continuing every day. There's a report about some temple or the other being vandalized, about the people, their land being taken away. So we have to take this up in a very, very big way, and at all levels, at all groupings within regional and others to stop this.
Absolutely, and a very worrying scenario that you've painted, Ambassador Sikri. And General Sahni, we've seen this in the past where countries, to distract attention away from their internal problems, they choose to launch wars against their neighbors. We've seen that happen in Pakistan, with Pakistan in 65 and in 71 and even possibly in 99 as well. Do you fear a situation like this building up in Bangladesh, exactly the kind that Ambassador Sikri mentioned, the fact that you have an interim government which doesn't have any legitimacy, which is conducting all of these very important strategic dialogues and foreign policy decisions, and is now trying to paint India as the so-called villain of the piece by raising up these issues where none exist? Is there a reason for us to be really alert to the possibility of Bangladesh doing something strange along the border?
No, I think, let me put it like this. Security situation that is emanating out of the current set of domestic turmoil that is in Bangladesh is a matter of concern 100%.
Right.
What is worrying is the growing nexus with Pakistan.
Yes.
Where the worry comes in for us is, as you're aware, there were reports sometime back of a cargo ship which came in from Pakistan.
Yes.
Some 65 people on board that ship are missing. There's a visa-free regime for all Pakistanis who are coming into the country. Now that opens the doors again for the ISI to start its machinations. Right. And as you're aware, we have, I would say, not really a turbulent, but I think the situation in the Northeast is always fragile.
Yes.
And in that fragile kind of an environment, any outside impetus can trigger off any kind of a flare-up and an internal turmoil. Right. We have a little bit of action still going on in Manipur, which has been continuing for a year and a half. We seem to see the cookie zoo issues that are coming into the forefront. So I think the issue for us is that this support of the ISI, the Jamaat relationship with Pakistan, the DGFI in the earlier past having relationship with the ISI, they're coming back for training. I don't think is going to see too much of a change. But what was happening, that there is still a large congregation of senior hierarchy which is dominating, including the gentleman who's of the border guards, who's now looking after the home affairs or the advisor on home affairs issues. They were always belligerent and always anti-India. They were always favoring the Pak. So there is a dispensation which is growing, which is of concern.
Right.
But coming up to the point of, is there a kinetic threat from them on the borders? I don't think so. Right. I don't think that'll happen. There's been a lot of water that has flown since 71 between the relationship between the army. Yes. I speak to the old AFB there. I have some friends who've done courses in India. Right. And as I said, till last month when I went back, I think I met quite a few of these people out there who are there. So there is a large portion which still is in favor of not wanting to trigger. But yes, it's a fertile ground for things to be incited to a point that India becomes worried and gets the Northeast gets reactivated. So you've got the China front through Myanmar. Yes. You've got the Afghan army which is sitting on Chittagong hill tracks. You've got the Rohingyas which are controlling the drug trade. Those are the people who are going to be supporting the cookie zoo. So when you look at this whole quagmire that is there between Myanmar, Bangladesh, our Northeast fragility, Chinese interest, Pakistan's interest, and to an extent I would say the US interest of the current dispensation. of inciting and creating this situation in Bangladesh, I think is a matter of concern. So we have to be conscious. We have to ensure our checks and balances. We'll have to be more vigilant. And I think maybe some of the activities that happened on the border fencing are also part of the necessary requirement to ensure that this illegal or illicit
Yes,
trafficking that happens, which could trigger the situation in our fragile Northeast, is correctly monitored and corrected. So I think
absolutely.
that's the area that we should be
Need to
looking,
be
but no.
very vigilant. Suhas Chakma, the fact that, as General Sani pointed out, there has been a precedent in the past for forces not aligned towards India, anti-India forces sheltering in Bangladesh. In fact, that was one of the reasons why India went in 1971, where the Chittagong hill tracks was used to launch insurgents into India. Do you foresee this happening now in 2025, where the Northeast is once again in the ferment? In Manipur, you have the Kuki-Zo problem, all of this with Myanmar. Do you believe this could be something that the DGFI and the ISI could be working on potentially?
I think the first point is if you have the current interim government, then they are going to go to any extent to trigger any kind of conflicts with India for their survival and
Right.
implement what they see as the -2 solution. And it remains to be seen, and it would depend on whether actually Khaleda Zia could come back from London
Right.
and is accommodated, or she could come back with Tariq Zia or not. A lot would depend, or a lot would be indicated, with the kind of return she has from there. So that's one issue. That they could be desperate and they could take desperate measures because their intention is not to be an interim government. Their intention is to stay as long as possible. And in fact, my fear is they will not hold the elections in 2026. They will try to postpone it as long as possible so that in future, possibly the Trump administration would be on the way out. Then they would hope that by the now democratic government would come back in the US. So that's one part.
Right.
The second part, which is happening is the Chittagong Hill tracks, is the Jamaati Islami and the GFI has already made plans to ensure the Chittagong Hill Tracks stands completely into a Muslim-dominated area.
Right.
And at present, they are in fact considering the decision to divide two districts in the Chittagong Hill Tracks. One is the Kagachuri district, one to be carved out exclusively for the Muslim majority community, and the Rangamati district. So these two districts will be divided, and plus Bandarban is already under the control of the Rohingyas and all
Yes.
other Muslim majority community. And this has become the fertile ground for all sorts of Islamic insurgency.
Right.
And, the Rohingya insurgents, the Rohingya terrorists are there, all sorts of organizations are training there, and
Yes.
the GFI and the Bangladesh Army, they have full and complete control. Even when Hasina was there, nobody could interfere. And in
Right.
fact, the first interview, which was given by Yunus
Yes.
to Voice of America, I think on 2nd of October, he said, I cannot do anything on the Chittagong Hill Tracks peace accord, which was signed in 1997. So
Right.
he has already given up his hands. And Chittagong Hill Tracks, because it's Islamic fundamentalist government,
Right.
their main agenda is to turn this entire region into an Islamic dominated region. At the moment, I think 50% of the population would be tribal population. So that remains a major challenge. And once they are there, then it's a massive problem for the government of India, irrespective of the border fencing. They remain porous and easy for people to cross. If people can cross, they can bring all sorts of things. And
Absolutely.
my fear
Very
is,
worrying scenario, Suhas Chakma. Ambassador Sikri, closing comments from you. Chittagong Hill Tracks has always been a thorn in our side from 1971 on. In fact, one of the reasons why we were so pro independent Bangladesh was the fact that the ISI was freely operating from the Chittagong Hill Tracks. What should be our options now in 2025, given the fact that you have a regime that's not so friendly towards India, and you have anti-India forces that are once again seem to be mobilizing alongside our borders? What should we really do, apart from what you just mentioned? Emphasize early elections and a new government in Dhaka.
Well, that is actually the only solution, because the present regime only want to stay on by force
Yes.
They're not staying on by the willingness of the people. As I said, everybody, all the groups within Bangladesh want early elections. So I think that if we insist on early elections taking place, and then we will see that actually as the Jamaat-e-Islami well knows, the people of Bangladesh are very religious, but they will not vote for Jamaat-e-Islami.
Yes.
They will not vote. They don't want Sharia law. They don't want Islamic fundamentalism ruling over them. So I think that if we stick to the present constitution of Bangladesh, and this is the constitution that assures the rights of the minorities, that talks about democracy and secularism and nationalism and social justice as its four pillars, I think this is the constitution under which Bangladesh has survived and prospered.
Yes.
For more than 50 years. In the last 15 years, they've had 6 to 8% growth of rate. The people are very happy because they're getting jobs, they're working in factories, their goods are being exported, and it was all working out very well. But now, as they gradually get more and more fundamentalized and try to get this, Turkey and Pakistan coming in, I don't think it's going to be accepted. Not only by the people, by the others. You can't for 50 years talk about Pakistan having killed and raped and maimed 3 million of your population, and then suddenly say that no, they're our best friend. And Pakistan has not even apologized for 1971.
Right.
So I think that it is by sheer force that they're trying to stay on and do as much as they can in as short a time as possible to make it irreversible. But I think that equally it is in India's own interest to make sure that this kind of situation does not continue, that elections are agreed upon within a time frame, and this illegitimate regime which has not been elected, which has been sworn in under a constitution which has no provision for an interim regime, this interim regime must go, because they have not been able to maintain stability, they've not been able to maintain the economy, they have given up all norms of democracy. And I think that if you get back to early elections between 90 days or 120 days, that's what the answer should be. And whoever wins, well, it's up to that government to decide what they want to do. But I can tell you that India has shown great patience, and India is willing to deal with their government, but they're not willing to, have this kind of daily needling where every day some new issue is brought up just to prove to your own people that India is in the wrong all the time.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sikri. India has shown great patience indeed, but we are faced with an interim administration, an interim regime that shows no signs of relinquishing power. And in fact, that should be India's game plan in the days ahead, to force elections and to deal with a legitimate regime in Dhaka. Thank you very much, General Sani and Ambassador Sikri, and of course Suhas Chakma, for joining us on this issue in our backyard.